It is Beadle and Grimm's month at the Gallant Goblin. Now, Dragonlance is arguably one of the best adventures that Wizards has put out in the last couple of years. It's grounded, it has a lot of a classic feel to it, it has a cohesive narrative, and it has a few fun innovations like the accompanying but optional board game that lets you play out your war encounters. Anecdotally, I know quite a few people who have started a Dragonlance campaign or who are gearing up to start one. Well, if that is your plan, you may want to check this out, Beadle and Grimm's Steel Edition of Dragonlance. Many thanks to them for sending it our way to review. Like the adventure, this is a very grounded set that focuses on those bread and butter Beadle and Grimm's pieces that I like so much. The adventure itself, lots of in-world documents, tons of maps, encounter cards, bonus encounters, DM aids, plus a lot more of course. Outside of the hardware pieces, which are as nice as always, everything else here is tied into gameplay. There's no minis this time around, but the WizKids Dragonlance mini set is of course available now, and we'll have our full set review of that this month too, hopefully. They take a long time. But if you are thinking about running this campaign, talk to your group. This box here is $300. So if you have a 4-person gaming group and split the cost of 5 ways, it'll come out to be about $60 a piece, which I think is pretty reasonable for a buy-in for a campaign that is going to entertain you for dozens, if not hundreds of hours. I'm going to show you everything inside and tell you how to get the most use out of it. So this will contain some story spoilers. If you are going to be a player in a Dragonlance campaign, send this video to your DM instead of watching it yourself. Trust me. All that said, let's take a look at Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen Steel Edition by Beadle and Grimm's. Before we jump in, if you want to bling out all your 5e games, you should consider adding some animated cards from Hit Point Press to your DM kit. The animated spell cards are fantastic for your spellcasting players and monsters, helping you keep track of their spell books and concentrated spells. But you can also use the very fun deck of animated Townsfolk to give a little personality to those random folks your party meets along the way, and use the animated deck of conditions to track who has what condition and what its effects actually are. And one of my favorite decks is the animated deck of illusions, an in-game magical item that the PCs can use. They toss a random card on the ground and it activates an illusion based on which card they happen to choose. Need to distract a guard? Toss a card. Maybe a goblin pops up, or a beholder, or a frickin' red dragon. It is just so much fun. Check out all the decks today using our links below or visit animatedspells.com. Let's start off as always with the adventure itself. Unlike the keys from the Golden Vault set, you do get the adventure for Dragonlance broken up into these little booklets, which should make it a little bit easier to handle for you as the GM. And the best part about having the little booklets this time around is that you get a character creation guide that you can safely give to your players without having to risk them seeing story spoilers. Paizo always makes these great player guides for their Pathfinder adventures, and I don't know why D&D hasn't done that as well. But now you at least get a version of that. And then of course, you get a booklet with chapters 2 and 3, and one with chapters 4 and 5, and then 6 and 7, and finally you get the appendices. So I've missed a couple of the Beadle and Grimm's boxes over the past couple of months, so I am not sure if this is new or not, but this is something that I've been asking for since the beginning. A complete guide to the contents of the box and where each thing is used. The only tough part about these big box sets is that it was easy to miss an opportunity to show off a document, or a piece of art, or a piece of hardware, or an encounter card, or anything that comes in these big boxes. There's just so much. And legally, Beadle and Grimm's can't directly annotate the book itself, which would probably be the most elegant solution, but this is a pretty close second. For each chapter, you get a complete listing of all the cool stuff that you can use from the Steel Edition box. I do wish perhaps it was a little bit more granular than just chapter breakdowns, maybe page breakdowns, but I am glad we are making steps in the right direction. Consult this list as you are planning your session so that you'll have all the cool stuffs at your fingertips as you play. Maybe one way they could do it would be to provide you with little stickers or post-it style page tags that you could put into the main book to help remind you to hand out a document or to use an encounter a card for a specific NPC. Now, there are a few things listed in the quick reference guide that didn't seem to make the final cut to be included in the box. Things like a couple of dungeon maps, like the Blue Phoenix Shrine and the Camp Carrion Clay maps. Now, this has happened with a few B&G boxes over the years when the contents differ slightly than what's listed. They do have a website with errata, which we will link to down below, to list all those changes that happened at the end of production. The set here includes 4 artifacts or hardware pieces. This is the Kalaman military token. The PCs will be recruited into the Kalaman military in Chapter 4, and you can hand them this 2-sided token as recognition when they do so, right here. Next up, we have the Amulet of Paladine, also known as Bahamut, the Platinum Dragon on other planes of reality. There's a great token for a paladin or a cleric who worships him. There's no chain included, but there is a little spot to attach it that you can buy your little chain elsewhere. It's a pretty hefty thing to wear around your neck. Next up, we have a little bit more of an evil token. This is the Amulet of Takesis, also known as Tiamat, which you may have gathered from the coloring. It is also a bring your own chain kind of amulet. And finally, we have the Shanair coin that represents the currency that your PCs will be using in-game in post-Cataclysm Krynn. It features a symbol of Shanair on one side and an ancient priest king on the other. The hardware included in the set here is quite nice, as it always is, but there's nothing particularly plot important this time around. Just some nice tokens to share around your table. Now, I'm curious to hear what you think about hardware pieces like this in these boxes. They're really nicely made, and I'm sure they add a fair amount of cost to the box, but they don't really add a ton to the story or the adventure most of the time. So what do you think? Do you like the inclusion of these? This set includes a lot of maps. Let's break them down by type. First, you get a poster map of Ansalon, the continent on Krynn where this adventure takes place. Now, this map is very similar to the one that comes in the original hardcover book from Wizards of the Coast. You can see them both together here. The one that comes in the Steel Edition box here is on a slightly glossier type of paper, and it has a little bit more color saturation, so you can see those together there. Next up, we get 4 area maps. You get this nice folded map here of the Kalaman region where the players will be doing some exploration. You can see it right here. And this map doesn't include the marked encounter areas, so you can safely let your players use this one as well. You also get a paper map here of the City of Lost Names, where the second half of the adventure will take place. You can see that here. And again, there's places for you to take notes on the back. These are not dry erase compatible though, so be careful with that. But these are laminated. You get a laminated map of Vogler, which is where the adventure starts off, and you can safely let your players use this as well. And you get one of the City of Kalaman, which is where the second half of the adventure is, and again, places for notes on the back. So these are very nice. I think they actually go together really well. If you wanted to put these up on your game room wall, I think they look really good up there. Then we have 13 dungeon maps. These are also on laminated cardstock, so you can write on them with wet or dry erase markers to keep track of your notes about monsters and traps and the like. Now, these aren't sized or designed to be played on. The squares here are not 1 inch wide. These are reference maps that you can have behind your GM screen to reference as you have each of these dungeon locations open in the book, so you don't have to flip back and forth. The maps are single-sided, so you can put some notes on the back if you like. I showed you that already. And unfortunately, these don't have those nifty sidebars listing the various monsters and traps and secrets that each area has, like the newer keys from the Golden Vault set did back that we reviewed last week. So, in no particular order, you get the Path of Memories, the Raided Catacombs, the Sunward Fortress, the Temple of Paladine, Threshold of the Heavens, Waken Wrath, Wheel Watch Outpost, Occupied Mansion, Flying Citadel Sublevels, Camp Carrion Clay, Bastion of Takesis, Blue Phoenix Shrine, and the Blue Maw Cave. And finally, we have 12 gridded battle maps. These are all on nice paper stock and come folded up. They are not dry or wet erase marker friendly though, so keep that in mind. Now, the maps that come printed in regular D&D Adventures vary from book to book. We've had some with very utilitarian maps in previous books that were done in that Dice and Logos sketch style. With those types of maps, Beadle and Grimm's had an artist come in and reinterpret them for their premium boxes. Now this time, the original maps done by Wizards of the Coast were solid and well done, so what we're getting here is just printed up versions of those maps from the original book. So without further ado, let me go through them by chapter. In chapter 4, you get the Wheel Watch Outpost map, which is 27 by 30 inches. Here the PCs have to retake the outpost from the Red Dragon army. This is one of those maps that can be used in a lot of different adventures actually. And there is the Raided Catacombs, which is 18 by 18 inches. The Raided Catacombs exist underneath Castle Calaman, but were sealed up a long time ago, so no one should be in there at all, right? No, surely nothing's in there at all. Chapter 5 gives us a Sunward Fortress, which is 20 by 26 inches. It's a pre-cataclysm monument to the god Syrian, unearthed by the Red Dragon army. We also get Wakenreth at 18 by 18 inches. It is a now haunted funerary obelisk constructed by Sylvanesti elves in the Asterian city of Onyari. There's also Blue Maw Cave at 24 by 30 inches. It used to be a dragon's lair, but the dragon left a long time ago, and now someone or something else calls it home. Chapter 6 takes place in the City of Lost Names and gives us these maps. The Path of Memories at 21 by 18 inches. These are the ancient tunnels that lead into the city. Next up is the Occupied Mansion, which covers 2 maps. The ground floor here is 24 by 30 inches. Who is the mansion occupied by? Why, it is the Red Dragon army, of course. The second floor is on a separate map that measures 21 by 18 inches. The Threshold of the Heavens is a tower at the center of the city that holds the controls for the city's magical ability to fly. This map is 16 by 16 inches with the 4th floor on one side and the 5th floor on the other. Now, battle might break out on any of the floors of the tower, but the boss battle will very likely occur on that 5th floor. And finally, we have Chapter 7 and the Flying Citadel Sanctuary and the Burial Vault on 120 by 26 inch map. And these lead up to one of the cataclysmic battles of the adventure, which takes place in the Bastion of Takesis, which is 27 by 30 inches. And here the PCs will battle Lord Soth's Standard Bearer, and if they didn't play their cards right, Lord Soth himself. This box gives us a solid collection of maps. Not every map we'll need for the adventure, but a lot of them. And several of them are generic enough to be used in future adventures as well if you want to double dip from this box. The highlight of these boxes for me is usually the in-world documents that you can hand out to your players at key moments in the game. Some Beadle and Grimm's boxes have just a couple, others have more, but this might be the most I've seen in one single box outside of the Keys from the Golden Vault box. We have 25 handouts here. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. I am not gonna go through each individual document this time since we now have that guide to help us know when to use each one. But we have a wide variety of letters, invitations, flyers, signs, notes, and even sketches. Some of the special ones, we have this Kingfisher Festival pennant, which you can see right here. And it's on a cardboard, but you can go ahead and hang it on your wall if you want to. It would have been kind of cool if it was an actual pennant, but we'll take what we can get. The bottom of the Steel Edition box also doubles as a Kingfisher crate, and you get 5 Calaman Enlistee mission journals, which have places to write details for 4 different missions. And the adventure includes 4 missions that the PCs can be sent on after their first one. So you may want to wait until the players complete that first mission before giving them these journals. Though this box here includes 2 other missions as well, so it would have been kind of cool if the journal had room for all 6 missions. Though all 6 of these missions are optional, so you don't have to run through all of them. But with this many documents, you will probably have at least one cool thing to give to your players at almost every session, which is really cool. Another staple of these boxes is the encounter cards, which feature the art of the creature on one side and all the information you need to run them on the other. You just toss them over your GM screen like this, and you're ready to go. This set includes 60 encounter cards, which you can see here, focusing of course on the creatures and NPCs of Dragonlance. Remember that you can use your Steel Edition reference sheet to see which encounter cards are used in which chapters, which again is super helpful. While I run most of my combat encounters using D&D Beyond these days, just being able to share the art with my players is really cool, and having the stats handy is always good just in case. And there are certainly ones that you can use in other adventures too, like the Wraith and the Ghost, the Grick, the Merid, the Minotaur Skeleton, and the Black Pudding. But for the most part, these are going to represent the Dragonlance specific creatures and NPCs found in this adventure. Next up, we have a deck of 27 affiliation cards for the Kryn Pantheon, the Knightly Orders, and the Mage Orders. The book introduced us to a ton of different Kryn deities and brought them into 5th edition, and this set gives us these little square pages with the symbol on one side and information about the deity on the other. So your players can keep these handy to remind them about who their characters purportedly worship, which is useful if your players are sometimes, like mine, and completely forget the religious aspects of their characters. Then you have 3 cards representing the 3 orders of knights in the realm, all members of the Knights of Solamnia, the most storied knighthood on Ansalon. You have the Orders of the Rose, Sword, and Crown, each following a different deity with different tenets, which these cards will helpfully remind your players of. Similarly, there are 3 orders of mages of high sorcery. Your PCs may end up joining one, and they can take one of these cards when they do. Be careful though, and do keep them safe because they are just on a thin, glossy paper stock. My other favorite B&G contribution is the bonus encounters. Again, sometimes we get a few and sometimes we get a whole set depending on the adventure and the book. This time it's just 3, but let's take a closer look. The first one is called Unfinished Business. It takes place in Chapter 4, Shadow of War, after the PCs joined up with the Calaman military. You can use this mission along with the ones presented in the original book to help you build out the threat of the dragon army and further explore the immediate setting around the city. In Unfinished Business, the PCs are sent out to a small fort to reclaim it from the dragon army, but they don't end up finding quite what they expected when they get there. It's a simple but enjoyable little adventure. Sacred Ground is our next mission, and it also takes place as part of the optional missions in Chapter 4. This one has you seeking out a reclusive but powerful druid to recruit them to aid in the city's defenses against the Red Dragon army, though the druid has some troubles of his own that you may have to take care of first. The last mission is Prisoners of War for 6th level characters. It takes place in the Wash, a canyon prone to unpredictable flooding. You can read more about it in Chapter 5. This one is probably the most interesting as it'll present the PCs with the opportunity to rescue a contingent of Dragon Army soldiers from a band of Marrow bandits. Being face to face with the enemy when a greater threat looms large can make for some very interesting interpersonal dynamics. There's also one additional set of little bonus encounters. In Chapter 7, there's an assault on the city of Calaman by the Red Dragon Army and the Flying Citadel. B&G provides a little set of bonus encounters to help raise the tension at your gaming table as people respond to the impending attack. This adventure comes with something that I think should be included in every published adventure, and that is a selection of NPCs with stat blocks at various levels who can accompany the PCs on their adventure. They can serve as a little bit of a blank slate for you. If your players create any backstory NPCs during character creation, you may be able to merge them with these NPCs if any of them match up. That'll make including them in your stories a little bit easier. They can also jump in and join the party if a player is missing from the table to keep your game balanced with fewer players than usual. Just hand the appropriate sheet here to another player who's willing to run 2 characters for the combat encounters. And they're also pretty great if you have an extra player who wants to join in for a session or 2. They'll have a pre-made character ready to go that is already in the story and already has stat blocks. Now, all the NPCs here were included in the original book. Beadle and Grimm just broke them out into their own single-page, double-sided sheet for ease of use. These are on glossy paper stock. And if you want minis for these characters, WizKids has a set called Dragonlance Warrior Set. It includes minis of all these characters that you can buy separately. Next up are some DM references. Specifically, we get a basic primer on the people of Kryn, the aforementioned Knights and Mages orders and the deities they worship, the Dragon Queen's forces, and a few new establishments for the city of Calaman when your PCs go out exploring. Now, this is the kind of thing that you might be able to expand using something like ChatGPT, a tool that I've been playing around with a lot lately. You can take the information B&G provided us, like a rough and tumble tavern called the Maudlin Minotaur, and ask ChatGPT or a similar service to generate the description, NPCs, proprietor, menu, or whatever else you might need. You also get the rules for airborne mounts, which I believe was pieced together from the regular mount rules in the player's handbook, plus a few of their own. Some fun stuff here like jumping from mount to mount and riding dragonelles. You also get a printout of the mechanics for the games in the Kingfisher Festival in Chapter 3. Now, the book also includes tables with the deities of the world, the days of the week, and the months of the year, and those would have been great little additions as well. What could be interesting is for Beadle and Grimm's to make their own custom GM screen that is made to hold pieces of paper like this. Then you can, when they make a new box for a new adventure, you can essentially get a new custom GM screen for it without the expense of producing an actual new GM screen each and every time. As is, there are certainly a lot of customizable DM screens out there which will hold pieces of paper like this. But for things like this, come on, give us more of this, BNG. I love it. As always, they pull all of the art from the original book and put it on these little folded sheets like this so you can more easily show it off to your players when the moment arises. You can just hang it right on your DM screen. And the back of the sheets will tell you the chapter, the page number, the title, and the artist. So if you're prepping a session, note any art pieces on the pages you're prepping and pull your art sheets out so you can show them off without having to worry about just holding up the entire book and trying to hide all the pieces of information that your players aren't supposed to see so they don't get spoiled. I do that all the time. You get 20 pieces of art on 10 sheets of paper. The set also includes a new art piece by Jed Chevrier, I think. So apologies for my pronunciation. This one measures 11 by 17 inches. It's pretty big, pretty awesome. Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen Steel Edition by Beadle and Grimm's is available now for $299.99. This set doesn't come with anything super out there, which is fitting for this adventure. It's all just really usable, functional material that should really enhance your campaign. The battle maps, the map reference sheets, and the encounter cards will make DM prep a lot easier for you as well. If they start including those sidebars with all the map reference sheets, that'll make these even more useful. I would have liked to have seen more custom adventures, maybe. I would say that a DM screen would have been nice too, but we talked about that a little bit. We get those little extra rules additions that they gave us, so that's helpful too, the little reference sheets. But we did get a custom DM screen from the Wizards of the Coast Original Deluxe Edition, so that is out there. But let me know what you think about this set in the comment section down below, and let me know if you've been running Dragonlance, and if you have, what do you think about it? As always, keep in mind that this box isn't necessary for having a fantastic Dragonlance adventure at your table. It is just more tools to make your life a little bit easier as a game master, and items to stimulate the imagination for you and your players. I still haven't been able to use and play a campaign using a Beadle and Grimm's box. The timing has just never matched up. The last D&D campaign that I played through in person was Storm King's Thunder, and that one hasn't gotten the Beadle and Grimm's treatment just yet, but maybe one day. And don't forget to also check out the animated spell cards from Hit Point Press if you're looking for even more fun accessories to streamline and enhance all your 5e games. Be sure you're subscribed here to see our full review of the Dragonlance mini set coming soon. I know we're a little bit behind on that one. It's been busy. If you'd like to add a little kobold plushie or 7 to your little tribe, you can adopt them at koboldplush.com. If you'd like to follow along with our shenanigans, you can follow us on one of these platforms over here. But for now, stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I will see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.